Have you ever looked at a government policy and just kind of scratched your head thinking, why on earth would they do that? A decision that seems to fly in the face of common sense. Maybe it even seems to hurt more people than it helps. Well, it turns out there's a whole field of economics that dives into the logic behind these seemingly illogical decisions. And that's exactly what we're going to unpack right now.
So here it is. This is the central mystery we are going to solve today. On the surface, it just makes no sense at all. Why would a democratic government, of the people, by the people, for the people, pass a law that ends up hurting the vast majority of its citizens, all to benefit a tiny, tiny minority? I mean, it sounds like bad math and even worse politics, right? But as we're about to see, there's a hidden economic logic at play, and our investigation starts with our very first clue.
And hey, this isn't just some theoretical question. Our case file for today is the 2009 Chinese tire tariff. The government slapped a huge 35% tax on tires coming in from China. Now, the stated goal was to protect about 5,000 U.S. tire industry jobs. But the result? The price of pretty much all tires shot up for millions and millions of American consumers. So let's put on our detective hats and find the clues that explain how on earth this happened.
Okay, so our first clue, it doesn't actually lie with the politicians. It lies with the individual voter. And it all starts with a simple but really powerful idea about why a perfectly reasonable person might choose not to participate in the first place.
It's a concept called rational ignorance. And what's so wild about this is how it frames not voting as a completely logical choice. I mean, think about it. To become a truly informed voter, you have to spend a ton of time and energy researching. Those are your costs. And the benefit? Well, the actual chance that your one single vote will swing a national election is, let's be honest, practically zero. So from a purely rational standpoint, a person might just decide, you know what? The costs just aren't worth the microscopic potential benefit.
And this isn't just some abstract theory either. The numbers really back it up. In U.S. presidential elections, you're typically only seeing about 55 to 65% of the voting age population even show up to cast a ballot. And for local or midterm elections, it's often way less than half. That means a huge chunk of the electorate is rationally just sitting on the sidelines.
This quote from B.F. Skinner really puts a fine point on it, doesn't it? When you look at it with that kind of cold, hard probability, the decision not to vote starts to look less like people are lazy and more like a calculated, if kind of cynical decision. And when you frame it like that, you start to understand why the silent majority so often stays silent. And that silence, that is the first major piece of our puzzle.
So if the majority is rationally quiet, who is making all the noise? Who's actually influencing policy? Well, that brings us to our second clue, the math of influence, and how a very, very small group can have a very, very loud voice.
Let's play out a scenario here. Imagine a government proposes a new carbon tax to reduce pollution. For the 10,000 people living in town, this is great. The clean air and health benefits are worth about $300 to each of them. That's a total social gain of $3 million. But for the two local factory owners, this new tax is going to cost them $1 million each. So the total benefit to society clearly outweighs the total cost. This law should pass easily, right?
Well, not so fast. See, here's the absolute key to understanding this. In the real world of politics, it's not the total social benefit that gets things done. It's the individual motivation someone has to get on the phone, to write a check, to show up at a hearing. And this right here just lays it all out perfectly. Each of those factory owners has $1 million reason to fight this tax. That is a huge, concentrated incentive to get organized. But what about the townspeople? Each person only stands to gain about $300. I mean, is that enough for you to take time off work, try to organize with 9,999 of your neighbors, and hire a professional lobbyist? For most of us, the answer is just no. The benefit is too small and it's too spread out or dispersed.
So what's the end result? The two factory owners, with their massive, concentrated financial stake, can easily coordinate and lobby like crazy. The 10,000 individuals, each with a tiny dispersed stake, stay rationally silent. And that, right there, is the power of a special interest group.
Okay, so we've got rationally silent individuals, and we've got really loud special interests. But what if everyone does show up to vote? Surely good old-fashioned majority rule solves everything. Well, our third and final clue reveals this fascinating and honestly frustrating flaw in the very mechanics of voting itself.
Let's look at this super simple scenario. We've got three families trying to decide what to have for dinner. As you can see, they all have different preferences. The Ortegas want turkey, the Schmidts want roast beef, and the Alexanders are hoping for lasagna. Seems easy enough. Just vote, right?
All right, let's run some one-on-one votes. First up, turkey versus roast beef. The Ortegas and the Alexanders both prefer turkey over roast beef. So, turkey wins 2-1. Okay, now let's take roast beef and put it up against lasagna. Here, the Ortegas and the Schmidts prefer roast beef. So, roast beef wins, again, 2-1.
So the logic seems pretty clear, doesn't it? If turkey beats roast beef and roast beef beats lasagna, then turkey has to be the overall favorite. It's got to beat lasagna, no problem. I mean, that's just basic logic. But here's the bonkers part. When you actually put lasagna up against turkey, lasagna wins 2-1. Wait, what? Hold on. Turkey beats roast beef beats lasagna, and then lasagna turns around and beats turkey? We are completely stuck in a loop.
This bizarre situation is what economists call a voting cycle. As you can see in this little diagram, there is no stable winner. Every single option is preferred to one alternative, but is defeated by another. And in a situation like this, the whole concept of what the majority wants just completely breaks down. The final outcome could be determined simply by the order in which you vote on the choices.
And there we have it. We have all our clues: the rational non-voter, the math of special interests, and the weird paradox of the voting cycle. So let's put them all together and see if we can finally crack the case of that ridiculously expensive tire tariff.
Okay, let's break it down. First, for millions of tire consumers, paying a few extra bucks for a new set of tires was a dispersed cost. It just wasn't worth their time or energy to fight it. They were being rationally ignorant. Second, for the 5,000 union members, saving their jobs was a massive, concentrated benefit. They had every reason in the world to organize and lobby like their livelihoods depended on it, because, well, they did. And third, even if everyone was involved, the strange quirks of the political system show us that there isn't always a clear, logical will of the people to follow. Often, the loudest, most motivated voice is the one that wins.
Now, hearing all this doesn't mean the system is totally broken. As Winston Churchill famously put it, democracy is flawed, but it's still the best thing we've got. Recognizing these economic quirks isn't a reason to give up on the whole system, but it's a reason to understand how it actually works, warts and all. It just proves there's no automatic guarantee that a democracy will always produce the most economically correct outcomes.
And all of this leaves us with a pretty big, challenging question. Knowing that our individual votes can feel insignificant, knowing that small, motivated groups can have a massive influence, and knowing that even majority rule itself can be paradoxical. What does it really mean to be an informed and effective citizen in a system like this? That's definitely something worth thinking about.